Absolutely.
It's all yours, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Lars. Uh, Thanks, everybody, for joining in again today. So for today's session, there's only a couple, things that I've got on the agenda. I do want to cover one of the last items on the actual, mill or turning post, doing like the A, B, C axes and how we can set those up. And then for a change up, I wanted to look at setup sheet post processors and kind of how we can use those. So the one that we're going to look at the most is Excel, just because it's a really good starting point and it's easy to modify, and I like the Excel version better. So anyways, so let's go ahead and start taking a look. So how to make an axis. So if you look under the onOpen function, it's literally right underneath it. You'll see an if statement, typically set to false right off the bat, unless it's already a multi-axis post. Anyway, so you'll see a setup that'll have coordinates, and we'll look at all this once we get done with this. But the three main ones that we'll look at is coordinate, table, and the range. So the range is your, basically the amount of rotation you can do degrees-wise. Table, whether you're defining it as a head axis or a table axis, and then coordinate of, so whenever if you ever look at a dump file on some of the moves that you do that have multi-axis, you'll see 6 coordinates. Those first 3 typically are your either A, B, or C value. And so it kind of derives from that. So whichever one you have set as your coordinate, that's the one that you pick. All right, so I'm not going to do that yet. Let's go ahead and jump into Notepad. All right, so again here, I've got my onOpen function, and then literally, like I said, right below the onOpen. So here you can see if false. So basically, if you're wanting to have the post out A axes or B or C, you will go in and actually set this to true. And then underneath that, so we see variables. So we're creating a variable called A axis equals, and then here's where we start creating the axis. Okay. So the first one is your coordinate, like I was talking about. So A is 0, B is 1. If you had C down here, it'd be 2. Table, I'm either going to do a true-false statement. Axis, here's where you tell it basically where it's at positioning-wise on the coordinate and on the outputs. And then by putting negative, it's going to default to going counterclockwise rather than clockwise. So I've got my A position here. This would be B, and then C. Anyways, and then that would be C. So range, you can see there's a couple different ways we can do this. So in the PowerPoint, I didn't show this either, but so for range, you can put, as you can see, multiple different setups. I can do negative 999 point whatever to that, or maybe you just want to continue to be able to rotate. So I could change out range and actually do what's called cyclic, and then this is just a true or false statement, if I can spell right. So this way it's just going to do a continuous rotation and not worry about a certain range that it can actually rotate through. And then by putting preference as 1, it's going to prefer rotating around the A axis before it does B axis moves. So that's just kind of the basics of that. And then here, where you see this optimized machine angles, this is just for your tip mode. And I believe that also drives TCP. So, if you have it on 0, it's not going to do TCP. 1, it would. So, that's just kind of the basics on doing those. And that's really all you have to do for creating an axis or changing how it's going to post. Because all the other, if you look at like on Rapid 5D, it's already got all the output calls in it already in the post. So once you set that to true, you're literally done. So you can save it and start posting out, fourth or fifth axis moves. So yeah, so that's just kind of finishing up those. So let's do this. All right, so that kind of was the last thing I wanted to show on the post processors for the actual, outputting your genome codes for toolpaths and all that. Next, what I wanted to look at was creating setup sheets. And there may not be a whole lot of use out there for it, but doing the setup sheets are actually really valuable, and I've actually created a lot of custom ones for customers around here. So I thought this would be one that would be kind of good to show. So with ours, everybody knows we have either you can do an HTML format type of setup sheet, or you can do Excel. HTML, you can use it on any device that has a web browser. So you can send it by email, maybe to the machinist, and he could open it up on his phone and read it. Excel format, there's more information that's kind of posted through that. You can print it to PDF, so it's easily storable and document management, and can print clearly to paper if you need to. So that's just some of the things. In Excel. So looking at Excel version, whenever you fill out a cell where you want information to be posted to, it always starts at $sign. So we'll look at this in a minute too. But, so every property that your parameter basically that you're trying to pull in will have a $sign in the front of it, and then you put the property that you created inside of your post processor for it. After that, like I said, we'll look at it. Images, there's a couple images already kind of built into the setup. I mean, they work just fine. One's the Autodesk CAM logo, and then one's the actual image of the part. So one thing I found is you can move the Autodesk CAM logo one around, maybe to different worksheets or whatever in the actual setup sheet. But the one that actually has the part image, what exports out of Inventor or HSM Workstation, whatever, that one has to stay on the same sheet, just because of how it's kind of linked in the rest of the programming in the background. That one has to stay there, or else it won't actually create an image of that part. Okay. Anyways, so again, Excel is, I think, easier to modify. It's actually got a lot of the info already built into the post process. You just have to tell it to output it. You can lay it out however you want. You can move pretty much everything around. All the layout is done through Excel rather than through the post processor, so forth. And then HTML, it already has a CSS style sheet built into it as a template, and all the layout is driven actually through the post processor. All right, so let's do this. So here's basically the Excel template sheet, or template for a setup sheet. So things I want to point out. So I've got program here. It's just a title or a header for it. If you look here, so I've got program name with $sign in front. So all these different inputs are actually pulling information from our processor. Now you see this one has a value. So I'm actually taking two of the cells. I'm taking Xmin, Xmax, and subtracting them from each other to get my actual overall stock value for X. Same with the way I'm doing it for Y and Z. Okay, so this one right here, this image, is the one I was kind of talking about. You can resize it, you can move it around on the sheet, you just can't actually take it away from the sheet or move this layout around on the tabs, or else it doesn't move with it. So it's kind of interesting just finding that stuff out. Again, operations tools. Okay, so everything that has value that's going to be pulled from post, $sign. So let's look at post processor real quick. Okay. So in here, we're finding that it's an Excel template. So I'm pulling, my output's going to be Excel SX for 2007 and greater Excel. There is another one for anything that's lower than 2007 version of Excel. Same kind of deal. It all modifies the same. Here again, you'll see that we have user property section, and I'll show you an example of a post that I did for a company where I created user properties of how they wanted to describe where the actual 00 point was located on their stock, because we wanted to be able to put notes and all that stuff for the machinists for setting it up in the machine. And then a lot of this stuff is just kind of, program name here. So pulling the name out, comment. Here I'm doing the time for when it was actually created, the program. Number of sections, getting all the tools. A lot of this original, or this first stuff that you see is basically just getting some of the parameters. Like here's all my tool information. Okay. And then we get to non-open. So then we kind of get back to our roots where, like we have in the other post process, you have on open, on section end. So this is kind of where the stuff is that you'll be familiar with, and you can add more stuff to it. So I want to go ahead and add a few parameters. So if I look at Excel, I notice on this overview page, I don't have anything that tells me the material of the stock that I'm cutting. I've got everything else, just it doesn't tell me the material. So let's say insert a row right here. I'm going to merge all these cells back together. This, use this. So for stock, I want to set my material. Okay. Now, one thing I want to do is if I go into my using my dump.cps host, I can find out that my material parameter is literally called material. Okay, so if I go back to my post, I'm going to add a new line here. And program info is how they will all start. And then here I'm going to define the actual parameter or property, basically parameter of how I want to. So like in the other ones, we create variables. Program info is creating a variable that I can call in Excel, basically. Okay, so I'm going to say program material is the parameter I want to build. Equals. Okay, so here's this brings me to a new one that I wanted to show you. So before we looked at how you create an if statement. So if I go back here, we have this long-winded kind of, if work offset greater than 0, blah, blah, blah. You get multiple lines going. So in the setup sheet, here's kind of a simpler way and a little bit quicker if you do just, real quick parameter call. So has global parameter here. I'm going to change username to material. Question mark. So this is basically saying, does it have the material parameter? If so, get that parameter of material. Or just colon, just leave it blank. So if it has material parameter, it'll pull that info. If it doesn't, it's just going to return an empty cell. Okay. So we'll go ahead and save this. I want to come back over here, and I'm going to do $program.material. Okay. Save my template. So we go into Inventor. Real quick, using that setup sheet Excel 2007. Oops. All right, so it actually returned an empty cell. I know why, because I don't actually have anything set on that. So that shows you that one. Now if I come over here, where I actually have aluminum that in my material is 661, I'll generate this one, post it out using the same one, except I'm going to call this 1002. And then here, you can see my material returned. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and close this. Keep the template up. Okay. So let's go back to here. Let's say, all right, go to my Tools tab. So you can see on the Tools tab, it's got quite a bit of information already being pulled. But I want to make some of it a little bit simpler, just take some of the information out and get something different. So I'm going to take a couple of those out. I'm going to say, tool description. Fix this up. Okay. So I want to pull the tool description. I'm going to go to the dump file real quick. And here I'm just going to search tool.description, just because I know that's what the actual parameter is. Okay, so I've got tool description, and then it equals 2-inch spacing tool. So if I want to find out if that's in here as well, I'm going to do the same kind of search. I'm going to do tool description. Okay, so I can see here that I've got an operation parameter created called tool description that equals my tool description. So again, I'm going to go back to Excel. Do that. And here I get my tool description now. So, like I said, a lot of the parameters and all that are already kind of built into this post processor. It's just finding the actual name of it and then translating that into Excel. All right, now, like I said, they're pretty easy on the posts for creating like the Excel stuff. lot of it's in there. You kind of have to find it. So what I want to do now is I'm going to show you one of the setups that I created before. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the interactive post. I know it's a post processor that comes with HSMWorks. I don't believe it comes with HSM right now, but so the interactive post is just a generic, tune-up post. But whenever you post out with it, it actually pops up a dialogue, like an interactive form that you can change, whether it's doing G2, G3, or you're doing R values, all that. So one of the things I did with the setup sheet, because customers wanted to be able to have a little bit more control on how it was spitting out some of the information, is I use that interactive form in the setup sheet. So, let's look at this. So I've got my 0 point set in the middle of the top of the stock. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and post. And I'm going to pass over to my library. Okay, so this is the interactive form that I kind of constructed for it. So this job comment is a field that is actually seen underneath the part image that's sent to the Excel sheet. And this was basically used for the programmer to tell the operator how they wanted it set up, basically. So like, fixturing information, or bolt to the table, whatever. However they wanted to do it. And then he could actually tell them exactly where that 0 point was. So my XY 0 stock, or center of stock, if I had it offset in one direction or the other, any which way, he would fill in these information to derive it from that center point. And then here I'm just telling it whether it's top stock, bottom, or middle of stock. So top of stock on here. Okay. So then this is the image scaled up a lot larger. And then here's the actual information that's posted from the interactive form. So picturing information, center of stock, 0, and top of stock. Okay. So let's look at the actual form. So again, if you go into, and it's in the HSMWorks one. Okay. Interactive. So the interactive.hta is the actual form that pops up. So going here, you can kind of see some of the styles. So it's basically a JavaScript form, or I'm sorry, yeah, JavaScript form. Using a little bit of the CSS stuff. So I've got the head of the form, has the banner. If it doesn't show the banner, then it shows this. So depending on whether you have that PNG in the file or not, that'll show up. And then just the basic information of what's input. So the form that you guys saw just a second ago was this one. So here I've got select position of the WCS, job comment, and text type of input. So I have that. The position, and so since I have the pull down, and this is kind of why I use this option, because doing the regular post processor and user properties, you can't actually have a pull down. So I wanted to be able to offer that. So this was the route that I had to go to be able to create this list of pull down. So select this WCS location is the name of this drop down. So whenever I call that later on in the form to pull that information, I actually have to use this, and then it pulls the value that is actually selected. So then there's the different values that I have. And then again, X offset, Y offset. And like I said before, a lot of this stuff you'll find in that W3 schools. I'm not going to cover how to create pull downs or the text inputs or anything like that, because if you use that generic interactive one, all the rest of the information except for this part, there's no pull downs actually in the generic one. But in there you've got radio buttons, check boxes, text, combo boxes, I think. They're not combo boxes, but everything else but like an actual pull down. And then here's the last one, setting the Z. So there's only 3 options on that one that we saw. And then in my typical fashion, I leave a lot of the information in there in case I want to use something later on. So here you can actually see the radio buttons. Here's the checkbox. So I mean, it's all in there, and it's kind of easy to figure out. And then here's cancel, and then you got an accept button. So those were the 2 buttons on the bottom of the form. Then the other important stuff on this one, once you get all this up here above, the other part that you have to pay attention to is right underneath this onload function. This is where you tell it, because what it basically does is you fill out the information, and it basically writes a text file out that then your post-processor for the setup sheet or whatever post-processor you're using goes and gets that text and reads it in. And so here I'm creating p-comment. So these p-comment values, if I look up here, is the ID of this label right here that I made, the job comment label. So we're not actually passing it the information of the text yet. It's just writing this basically to that document. Okay, so job comment, positioning, offsets, all of that stuff, and then your cancel accept. So that's all in there to pull. And then this area right here is actually setting like the default. So whenever I posted it out, oops. There we go. So you can see whenever I originally started it, I have center of stock set as a default, and 00 set, and then this one's not set at all, and this one doesn't have anything. So that's actually driven, just kind of funny. You have value there, but didn't show, whatever. Anyway, so I don't have anything here. So like with this one, I had top stock. If it doesn't match a value that's actually in your list, it won't populate it into that default value. So anyways, so center of stock, 00, all that stuff set. A lot of this stuff is just translation. So there again, I don't mess with any of it because it all works perfect. And the last thing you have to do is at the very end, here's where it actually writes the information to a file, to a separate file. So it's creating the text file here. So here I'm doing F right line, comment equals plus comment value, so then it's finding the actual value. And these right here, this WCS location, this is the ID of the actual input that you're doing. So whether you're doing a pull down, a text, or checkbox, that's the actual ID of the input. So put all those in there for whatever you're posting out. Then, like I said, there's kind of a lot to the form, but it's really useful. Just kind of have to know what you're wanting to do. So properties here, I created actual user properties that will be populated with the information that comes from the form. Okay, so I do this. The one thing you'll have to add at the very top is this new function called show dialog. And basically what I do, again, copy and paste is my very good friend. I'll go to the interactive CPS, and then I'll just find where they have the show dialog here, and then just grab everything. So in this case, I'm going down to the on open. Then I would copy and paste that into my post processor. So show dialog, I'm telling it what form I want it to show whenever I actually hit the post button. And then down here, I'm telling it using a switch statement so that once it hits comment, it's going to fill out properties.jobComment equals value, so it's doing the value of comment ID. WCS again, properties.WCS location, X location dim, and so forth. So once I do that, it populates that information into those user properties that I can then use down the road, which are on open. Right here. So this is where I define those user properties being used. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier. So whenever you do create, if you change it just as a generic, setup sheet, or maybe create a different template in Excel, you got to make sure that you put that Excel file name in here. And so it goes in here on the on open, and then that's the only place actually. So in the on open, this is where you got to tell it what the actual name of the Excel file that it's going to be using as a template. Cool. All right. So this one's a little bit shorter on time, just from what I'm showing. Trying to think if there's anything. I guess, are there any questions right now that anybody has?
Yeah, let's do that, man. Anybody got anything they would like to ask Matt here?
And it can be over at any of the sessions that we've had if you had any questions come up from something else.
It's a lot to take in. So these setup sheets, Matt, is that something that you really kind of like have created a library of, or is it more like per basis?
Most of the time, it's just going to be per the customer, because everybody has different ways of how they want to see stuff for their setup sheets. But you could probably create a library of some sort if you wanted.
Do you have a library?
I keep every post that I've ever changed. I have stored away just in case.
Right, backing up is a good thing. So what would it make sense we possibly out on A360 that we kind of like added a couple of different ones just for people to kind of like be able to open up and reference?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem at all.
Okay, yeah, I think we should do that. I've got a question here. I want to add a calculation cell to the machining timesheet, but it won't calculate on generating the setup sheet. So actually looking for calculation of a price.
Ah, okay. So one thing that I've always done on those, because I've actually created I created a quoting template once using a post processor. So one thing you have to do is, it may not actually calculate it right off the bat, but if you go into the cell and then just hit enter, it typically will calculate then. Because I've had an issue with that one before. Because there was, let's see, I wonder if I still got that. I should. Yeah, Fusion quoting template. This is just a generic one that I made up at one time. So, like I did quote number. Like I said, there's lots of I played around with this a lot, so you can do quite a bit of different stuff with this with these forms. So depending on the type of material you're using, let's put some random numbers in here. Okay. Let's see. That one I didn't. I got it fixed. Yeah, I'd have to look at it then. Because usually this one right here wouldn't update whenever I do an actual material selection. So I would always have to go in, pick in an actual calculation, and hit enter, and it would generate for me.
All right, so maybe that's something we also could upload to A360 for people to kind of like play with. Ivan was asking about more examples like we did in the first one, so that's cool that you like it, Ivan. How about that you guys create a list of some of the main things you would like to see in the post being added? So like, if some of the things you guys are running into, if you normally see that, how do you move an MO1, or how do you change specific things in the post? If you could send those to either me or Matt, I think that we could definitely create a webinar where we are answering those specific ones. But I rather want to do that then me and Matt try to come up with some examples that doesn't really apply. So, that's a thing for you guys there if you want to send some examples in, because I think that would be good, right? If customers are requesting certain functions from you guys, yeah, let's show them. So that would be good.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Any more questions? Oh, I mean, we can do other things than just setup sheets. If you have any post questions, that's fine too. Um, Matt knows it all, man. So if you want to hammer in a couple of post questions, and that's what I think. I mean, with this series here, setup sheets or posts. I know it's two different animals, but it's normally the same guy who does it. How can I add the name of the post processor as a comment in an NC code? Ooh, I like that one. So I select a post processor for a specific machine, let's say my Haas VF3, and when I post out the code, it shows in the code as a comment that I used the post for the VF3.
Good one. The one way. I think the post processor one actually having the name would be will be a little bit different. You might actually have to do it as a user property, because if it doesn't actually dump that out,
So then you would have to create an exit property for it.
yeah. So if I look at the very top, yeah. So I think with that one you'd actually have to create a user property that you would then populate with the name of the post, because from what I see, it doesn't actually have that as a value that you can pull from the dump file. So I would just create like just a user property. Let's see where am I at. So you could do just like this, post file. And then you could have that in the open. And depending on where you want to put it, write comment, properties dot post file. And then that would output that post file as a comment, or that post name. So
That was on open section you put that in?
yeah, in the open, and it'll be so I always find the percent sign, and the next one's going to be your program name, and then right underneath the program name is where I put that.
Would that be the same way to add like time and date on the creation of the post?
Yeah, for time and date, again, you're going to do write comment. And actually, if I was just messing with this before, so if I do post date as a variable, equals, and then so if you do this, so here I've got generated by, oh, not that one, sorry, generated at as the date and timestamp and all that. Time doesn't come across very well, but
Date is probably good enough, I would think, right?
Right, as global parameter generated at, and this is where that new, a different way of doing the actual if statement. So if I do question mark get global parameter.
Now back to the thing about the post name, that will do it automatically now, right? The way you just, what you did on top with the post, the one right above it, or are you actually saying
The
that you have to,
programming?
well, in regard to the one right above it about the name of the post, did you have to write that in, or?
Yeah, I had to put that in as a right comment.
Okay, so that means that you manually would have to type in what post it was?
Yeah, you would. You'd have to, because it doesn't, since it doesn't dump it out to,
Got it.
I mean, you could have it to where you wouldn't. So if you did multiple posts, so if I've got this Hoss one, and I know it's going as a Hoss.cps, I wouldn't have to change it. And then if I had a Kuma, I could type in a Kuma in here, so it's
Okay.
generic with it.
Sure. All right. Cool.
And then, okay, so to finish the time and date, so generate that, and then get global. So if it has that, it gets it and creates it as post date. If it doesn't, that's how it goes. Then I can do a right comment of just type in post date. Then if I save that, go in here. Looking at our webinar post. And then get user. That's funny. Anyways, so then I get Hoss, and then I get my date. Oh, hey, it didn't come across right.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? All right. Well, definitely, any tip on handling rewinds? A customer of mine has a head slash has 5-axis machine with a C-axis limit. Ugh. Yes, rewind.
I know there's a new post up on the post site, or the post library that we have now. I think for the UMC that has rewind in it. But I haven't actually dealt with doing rewinds before, so yet. So I can't really answer that one, but I'll look
Maybe,
into it. And
yeah, maybe ping the guys on the post team. That might be worth it. Let's take one last question. How can I create subsequent numbering in the NC files? So when you're
talking about like the end numbers here?
that's what my thought too. Are you talking about the end numbers? Or are you talking about something else?
File names.
I'm lost.
Me too.
So you want subsequent numbering in the NC file, the name of it? Is that what you're asking? Okay. Now is this for like sub-programming, or is this just a regular when you're naming?
Oh.
I mean, my brain might be. You know what? Shoot Matt an email about that one. And oh, so you don't have
Yeah.
to overwrite every file. Okay. Jeez.
Oh, I gotcha. Mm,
I don't know.
that would be. I don't know if you can do that.
Well, maybe you can think about that, Matt.
Yeah.
Have a
Yeah,
cup of
I'll think about that one.
Sit down with a cup of coffee and think about that one. Yeah, that's a good one though. All right, guys, gonna wrap it up here. But send emails if there's anything other you guys would like to see, anything specific. Post or setup sheets, and Matt and I will get together and see if that will make sense to create another webinar further on. But I definitely like to thank Matt for taking the time to do these three webinars. I think this was a great series. This is definitely one of those that you can put in your memory bank so you can review it next time you get something in the post. So Matt, thank you so much for taking all this time. Everybody who joined us, thank you so much for coming in and sitting along with us here. Really appreciated it. And the next bi-weekly, I think we will have Al, product manager Al Whatmouth, coming in and give us an update on what's going on from the development side. So thank you so much. Thank you, Matt. And everybody have an
Thank you.
awesome day.